So let's start talking about heart health and cholesterol, because that's a little bit newer information. So what have you learned about that? Why is that such a passion for you now?
Yeah, it's a passion because I personally think that cardiology as a medical profession is the most corrupt medical profession. Hate to say it because there's probably some cardiologists watching this right now. I'm not saying everybody who's a cardiologist is corrupt, but that profession in particular, it's unusually corrupt.
Why is that?
I think it's because they tell people they're going to die unless they get on statins. Right. And that's the best sales pitch in the world. I mean, imagine you went to the car mechanic, Rich, and you had to, and he said, look, we need to change your oil or your car's going to explode and you're going to die. Well, that's a good sales pitch. Like, you're sure as hell going to change your oil. Right. Like, if you can use death as a marketing tool and tell people they're going to die unless they get on some fake prescription drug that's not found in nature, you're going to sell a ton of product. And that's exactly what they do. And that's almost exclusively what they do day to day. They just tell everybody your cholesterol's too high. Let's get you on statins. And they usually wait until you're about 40 or 50.
Compensated for prescribing statins?
That depends on the state and the yes, for the most part, yes.
Like directly like with money, or is it, hey, we're doing a retreat in Hawaii for 4 weeks, so we're going to take you along, Dr. Smith?
It depends. I mean, usually it's direct. I mean, the hospitals get kickbacks, so then the doctors get kickbacks, but it's not like if you prescribe 10 of these, you get 10 times more money or something, but
right.
Their salaries blow up.
And what do statins do exactly?
They just lower cholesterol. So they block your body's ability to make cholesterol.
And you need cholesterol to manage your endocrine system, don't you? It's like the building block for testosterone.
It's the building block for testosterone, all your sex hormones. Exactly. And vegans, this is another strike against veganism because their total cholesterol is usually super, super low. Right? Like 110, 120. And you know what the doctors tell those people? They say, oh, I'm so proud of you. That's so good. In fact, are we able to screen share on this thing or not really?
At the bottom, you should be able to hit present.
Oh yeah, present. Okay, I'm gonna show you a study if I can.
Yeah. So if you just hit present and throw it up on the screen, I think you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, let me minimize and pull up a study. I've got it right here, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. It's saying, okay, window, cholesterol study.
Oh, hang on, I think share. I got it. Yeah, go ahead.
And do you see my screen right now on the cholesterol? Okay, good.
Yeah,
so
see it?
Yeah, I'm just getting this out of the way. Perfect. So you see the title of this study, right? Total cholesterol and all-cause mortality. So what they're just looking at your total cholesterol, and this study is the gold standard. It's got 12.8 million people. Giant study, right? And all-cause mortality, that's just a fancy scientific way of saying death. They don't want to say death, but they're studying what's your total cholesterol, and not just what's your risk of heart attacks, but what's your total cholesterol and what's your risk of dying by any cause. So it could be heart attacks, but it could be strokes, could be cancer, could be anything. All right. And again, 12 million people. This is a giant study. I just want to show you one graph from the study. Right. And it's right here. It's figure 2. Let me try and blow it up here. And you can see this total cholesterol, men and women, hazard ratio on the left. Hazard ratio, that means hazard of dying by any cause, right? You don't want a high hazard ratio. It could be higher cancer, it could be higher heart attacks, could be higher whatever, but you don't want a high hazard ratio. It just means a high risk of death. Now, if you're a vegan, your total cholesterol is almost always 110 to 120, right? And look at how terrible that is in terms of your hazard ratio. That's literally the worst hazard ratio you can have. That doubles your risk of death. But you know what the doctor's going to tell you? You know what your cardiologist is going to say? If you go in there with a 110, I guarantee you they're going to tell you, I'm so proud of you. Your cholesterol is amazing. Good job.
Are they lying or are they just misinformed?
They're just mistrained. That's just what they're taught to say. That's what they think. They think lower is better. And they get hammered with this in med school, and they get laughed at if they think anything different, It's kind of like the COVID stuff. It's like if they're taught, if they're saying something different than what the government says, everybody laughs at them and says, they're wrong and all this. There's a lot of peer pressure in this. But you know what's the craziest part of this is if your total cholesterol gets above 200, check your blood work. It'll say they flag it. They say it's too high. They tell you it's terrible. You got to get on statins or you're going to die. Honestly, that's literally the best range, right? You can see where the hazard ratio is the lowest is above 200. Anywhere between like 180 and 280, I'm as happy as could be. That's exceptional. That's great. That's good for your testosterone. It's good for everything. And again, your hormones are made from this. So if you're down here in the vegan range, right, your hormones are going to be super low, your sex hormones. So the vegans complain about this. The doctor will say, oh, good job. You're doing so good. Your cholesterol is amazing. Your blood work looks great. And then, of course, they don't check their testosterone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the vegan will say, yeah, but I have no sex drive and I have no energy. And the doctor will say, oh, it's strange because your blood work looks really good. Now, I'll look at their blood work and say, no, it doesn't look good at all, right? I want to get you above 200. Let's start eating saturated fat. Let's start eating lots of bacon. Right?
Okay, so total cholesterol over 200. So what would be the max range? Like the higher the better, or
no,
does
300
it
is starting to go back up, right? You
okay, so 200 to 300 is good. So I'm going to keep an eye on this with my own. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Well, and I've had clients, Rich, that are 400, 500 on their total cholesterol. That's way too high, right? The hazard ratio starts to go. Now, usually they have genetic issues where that's their weak spot. And those people, I still don't tell them to go on statins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I tell those people to go vegan. You know, honestly, if your cholesterol is 500, it's probably damaging your arteries. And the reason for that, by the way, here's how they do it in med school. I've taken the classes, I've tutored the classes, I've taught the classes, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what they do. I used to be very conventional in my thinking too, by the way, but I've just shifted a lot over the years and it's been a slow process for me. But they tell you, look, there's a genetic mutation that causes familial hypercholesterolemia. What does that mean? It means your cholesterol is outrageously high, right? Like 500, your total cholesterol. And in those people, you see heart attacks at age 30. You know, like you legitimately see early heart attacks, really young. Therefore, cholesterol is bad. Cholesterol causes heart attacks. If it's high, it's bad. Mm-hmm. Lower is better. That's kind of the foundation for the way they think on this. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. If you have super high cholesterol, it reacts with oxygen in your body, right? Like you've got red blood cells carrying oxygen and it becomes oxidized. If it stays in your body long enough and your liver can't clear it out, it starts to become oxidized and the cholesterol itself becomes inflammatory. And remember, inflammation is always the root cause of plaque in the arteries. So you end up with inflammation, you end up with damaged arteries. And the cholesterol is physically there in the arteries. I mean, it fixes the damage. And so they say, look, in those cases, you lower that cholesterol with statins. Usually that's what they do. In those, the risk of heart attack goes away. And that's true. And you don't have to use the statins to do that. You can use the vegan diet to do that or manage that. Mm-hmm. At least get it down to 200 and then start changing your diet back. But the point is, like when it's outrageously high, it's still not the cholesterol. It's the inflammation from the high cholesterol. Does that make sense?
Have cholesterol levels changed over the last 50 or 60 years? Like, is this, something they monitor kind of like testosterone levels you mentioned with that study back in the 1980s?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, they do monitor it. In fact, in that exact study, let me see if I can share the screen again, and hopefully it's still on that same image. In that study, they actually have data. I closed it. But they show the average male or the average female. Here, I'll pull it back up because then otherwise I'm just...
Yeah, I just hit the present button at the bottom there and it'll pop up on my end so I can put it in the screen.
Yeah, I accidentally closed the whole PDF, but I just got it. There you go. So I'm going to go back to that same page we were just on. And you see the top of the page here with these two graphs? It says mean total cholesterol, mean TC. That means like basically the average, and median TC. So the average total cholesterol was measured in this study for men and women. You can see at age 40, the average man is usually about 195. You see that? That big green line? And the average women at age 40 is usually about 180. So they have this data, right? Mm-hmm. And so with age, it tends to go up a little bit because your sex hormones start to go down a little bit. So your body increases cholesterol in response to that, right? Your body's trying to make more hormones. It's trying to stay optimized.
Got it.
But in terms of, like you asked about, you know, from 1980s or whatever, I don't know. I've never looked into the historical trends. I'm sure there's probably a bit of a story there.
Interesting. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.